My name's Philippe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in what architecture can tell us about our lifestyles. I'll take you to explore some of the most remarkable habitats on the planet in order to discover their meaning and to share their riches. The Peloponnese is a peninsula in the southernmost part of mainland Greece. Nestled in the beautiful unspoiled landscapes of mountainous Arcadia is the monastery of Agios Nikolaos Varson. Since the 11th century, monks have found in it an ideal retreat conducive to religious life. This region has always housed numerous monasteries, as it offered both a refuge for monks seeking above all a retreat from the outside world, as well as a protective shelter against attacks. The father abbot of the monastery has the same name of a biblical character, Melchizedek. Father Abbot, hello.
Hello.
Which means in Hebrew, King of Justice. When you're up here, you can see just how isolated the monastery is in the middle of these mountains.
When you live removed from secular thought, from a community, from the daily life of a married man, but instead live in a natural setting that is the absolute creation of God, then you have the impression that you're living in heaven. Tranquility helps the human being concentrate on his inner conscience. We may be isolated here because of this search for quietude, but we aren't cut off from man.
The first abbey, built around the hermitage of St. Nicholas Varson, originally stood on a neighboring peak. But the absence of a nearby water source forced the monks to relocate. The present monastery stands at an altitude of 1,100 meters. 6 monks live here, behind its high stone ramparts. Thank you. When you enter the monastery, silence takes over, and you really feel as though you've entered another world. This passing from the exterior to the interior is full of meaning, and it's something you feel on a physical level. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. This passing from the external world to the internal world is real. Since we enter a building, a construction, a different place. But it also has a spiritual meaning, because we enter a world in which the triadic name of God is praised and worshipped. And this place in which we find ourselves now has not only been sanctified by the prayers of the monks who live in the monastery today, but also by the prayers of all those who have lived here before us over the past 1,000 years. In our daily life here, without having a fixed program that would deprive the monk of his freedom in the simplicity of his everyday activities, we take a few hours to coordinate ourselves and organize our time. But the monks have freedom of movement within this monastic life, whether they pray individually or pray together in church with the other fathers.
The monastery is both a place of personal retreat and community living, as well as a place of spiritual asceticism. How are these different dimensions expressed within the same building? And how do the monks make the transition from one to the other in their daily life?
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen, all for free. No subscription required.
The monk's day is divided between prayer time and domestic chores. I'm struck by the fervor with which they carry out each of their activities, as if they all had equal value. Here, every aspect of daily life is impregnated with religion. Father Samuel devotes a large part of his time to icon painting. He has learned to paint using the traditional Orthodox technique. These icons, true objects of worship, are sold to the faithful who come to the monastery. Hello.
Hello.
Are there any particular rules applied to icon painting?
There isn't just one unique way to paint icons. There are many different ways in the Orthodox tradition. Our drawings are always done in accordance with our tradition, a tradition that has been passed down to us throughout the ages, throughout time. An Orthodox icon painter obviously isn't entirely free to paint what he wants or how he wants. The painter is free as regards the drawing, the style, the colors he uses, and the artistic composition, as well as the chosen materials, whether it be a wooden icon or a fresco painting in a church, or the fabric for a liturgical vestment, or stones or any other material. Once a sacred subject is represented on this material, this image automatically becomes sacred. That's also why it's called liturgical art, which means that it's intended for the inside of a church.
In the monastery, the thresholds are physical but also symbolic, for they enable the expression of opposites within the same space. The internal and the external, the individual and the communal, the sacred and the profane.
The church, the Katholikon, as it is called in the monasteries, is situated at the center of the building complex, and all the other buildings refer to it. The central church gives one the impression of being continually in the spiritual life. All the other buildings contribute to this impression because all the windows and doors face the central church.
But inside the monastery, are there thresholds that you feel you cross on a daily basis?
There are gradations between the different parts of the monastery. Some are more sacred than others, like the central church, for example, but also the monk's cell. This is where he not only rests, but praises God in private. Any cell in which we live is also sanctified because it's a place of prayer. It's the divine grace that enters the human when he prays, and this is what sanctifies places. It's not we who depend on places and material elements. Divine grace comes through man's prayers. It visits each monk who lives in the monastery, and it's he who, through his prayers, sanctifies all the places around him.
The bell chimes announce the start of evening mass. This musical summons invites the monks to stop their respective, often private activities, to come together in prayer. Mass is an essential moment of the monk's day. For them, it's the occasion not only to praise God, but also to connect with the parishioners. It's a way of being a part of the human community by linking the monastery to the outside world. The monastery isn't just a place of prayer. It's primarily a physical space that needs to be maintained and supported.
When I first came here 33 years ago, I immediately loved this monastery. It pleased me very much, but it wasn't in the same state as it is now. It was in a much worse condition, and little by little, over the years, we've made it what it is today. Spiritual asceticism isn't enough. One also needs physical exercise. To attain the spiritual life, we first of all have to tire the body, and only then can we attain the spiritual level. The lay people come here and each one confesses his private troubles, and with the experience we've acquired, we are able to give them some guidelines to help them cope with their problems. Through the act of confession, which connects them to the monastery, we create a large circle within which we form a large fold and a brotherhood. That's our aim. That's what unites us.
Hello.
Hello.
This shared breakfast with the monks is an opportunity for me to observe their sense of hospitality. Thank you very much. This way of welcoming a stranger and making room for him isn't just a generosity of heart. It's a way of sharing space. It makes me think of the words of the philosopher Paul Ricoeur. Hospitality can be defined as the sharing of home, the pooling of the act and art of living. The monastery is a community space that fascinates me, not only because it's a place of retreat, but also because it's a place in which to find oneself. Iona Stoufi-Pilouminou is a professor of Christian and Byzantine archaeology in Athens. She enlightens me on the history, symbolism, and social function of Orthodox monasteries.
These are Byzantine sculptures. They've been immured in the eastern part of the church where the altar is to enhance this site, which is the most important site in an Orthodox church. The church that we see today was built at the beginning of the 17th century. As a result, this monastery has a continuous history, a constant presence here since the Byzantine period.
Here, the church is at the center with the domestic spaces around it. Is this type of spatial organization unique to this monastery?
This organization isn't specific to this monastery. It's an organization that's common to all Greek, and I'd say Byzantine monasteries. We can consider that this type of monastery is based on the layout of house courtyards. We see this same spatial organization in the classical era, the Hellenistic and Roman eras, with all the buildings placed around a central courtyard. The architectural structure of the church is based on the symbolism of the cross, with 4 pillars to support the dome, which is a symbol of heaven. The lower parts of the church represent earth, and the apse on the altar platform is the ladder connecting heaven with earth, because in the divine liturgy, it is through this that humans reach union with God.
I feel that in this church, but also in the monastery as a whole, the architecture is there not only to create spaces, but perhaps above all, to create connections.
The primary relationship is that with God, and this is perfectly served by the architecture of monasteries. Another relationship is that which is established between the brothers of the community, but there's also the relationship between the monks and the outside world. You need to know that monasteries, in fact, are involved in a lot of social action. Today in Greece, there are monasteries, and this is an old Byzantine tradition, that run old people's homes or boarding schools. And in Byzantine times, there were even hospitals inside the monasteries. They played a very important social role. We even know that there were baths in the Byzantine monasteries, public baths. So there's a mutual fusion between the closed community of the monastery and the outside world.
Despite its geographical isolation, the monastery receives visitors all year round. The faithful, first of all, who come here to talk with the monks and to confess themselves, but also tourists attracted by the atmosphere of the surroundings or to purchase religious items. The proceeds from the sale of these items go towards the upkeep of the monastery. Do you come here often to attend Mass?
Me, yes. I'm a child of the monastery.
After the departure of the faithful, when the monastery door closes, the monks find themselves alone with God. Silence has fallen over the monastery once again, and I experience a feeling of peace and serenity. The monks even make their own incense. Brother Arsenios agrees to teach me his production method.
In these bags we have the raw ingredients. That's resin, olibanum.
Oh yes, little resin pellets, like this. I see.
It comes from a tree, the Livanum, which obviously doesn't grow in Greece, but in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, or Ethiopia.
Ethiopia?
This resin is from Ethiopia.
It smells like resin.
Yes, there are essential oils in it. Let's move on to the next stage. We put the resin in this machine, and it becomes a sort of flour.
Oh yes, it's powdered now.
We're ready to make a paste.
Yes, and you can really smell the resin now. It smells good.
We place it in the basin.
Okay.
We make the sign of the cross to bless it, and then we add the perfume.
Ah, you pour it on, I see.
We start mixing it together like this. And it changes color. It becomes sticky.
Okay.
And we're now ready for the final stage. Do you want us to do it together?
Sure.
Put the gloves on.
Okay.
You take a small amount, not too much.
Like this?
You make a small ball. Very good, Philippe. That's very good. Then you add a bit of talc and magnesia, and you make a roll.
Ah, you gotta have the neck.
Little by little,
It looks nothing like yours. Mine looks like a worm.
you just need a bit of practice.
You need to have the neck. The incense that perfumes the church is a symbol of prayer and elevation of the soul.
The incense that we made in the workshop is placed here on the red-hot charcoal. The censer symbolizes the church as a whole. The top part here symbolizes heaven. The bottom part of the censer symbolizes earth. The chains that link heaven to earth represent the four evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, who are the pillars of the church. The bells symbolize the 12 apostles and their sermons heard around the world. That's why the bells ring. The teachings of the apostles were heard throughout the world. Here, the bottom part, that we call the nest, symbolizes the Virgin Mary, and in particular, the Virgin's womb. And the sweet-smelling smoke that rises up towards heaven symbolizes the prayers of man which rise up from the heavenly altar before God's throne. In fact, incense creates a soulful atmosphere in the church. Incensing also has another symbol. It means that we have been planted by God on this earth like trees, and like them, we also have to bear fruit. Like the Levano, as I mentioned earlier back in the workshop. It's a tree that bears fruit. And just as the tears of resin flow when we scratch the tree, people have to accept sadness, pain, and suffering to produce tears that will then lead them to the virtues.
As I leave the monastery, I think of these monks who have withdrawn from society to live a life of silence, asceticism, and prayer. Their hospitality and generosity have made me understand that there exist other ways of being present to things, to others, and to the world. Isolated, perhaps, but not alone for all that. At the top of the Arcadian mountains, these monks have found their place amongst humans. My name's Philippe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in what architecture can tell us about our lifestyles. I'll take you to explore some of the most remarkable habitats on the planet in order to discover their meaning and to share their riches. Varanasi, formerly Benares, is located in northeastern India in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Crossed by the river Ganges, it is the holy city of India. Up to 1 million pilgrims come here to purify themselves every year. Holy texts describe it as an eternal city, preserved from the movement of space and time. And it's one of the most ancient cities in the world. Varanasi is a holy site. In Sanskrit, it's known as a tirtha, which means crossing place, one that is as physical as it is spiritual. It was founded through and for religion. Today, it enjoys an economic boom and a rise in population that speeds up the modernization. How do religion and modernity live side by side? Does the religious fervor, which traditionally drives Varanasi, help or hinder the city's development? I decide to leave the banks of the Ganges to discover the inner city and its maze-like alleyways. As I leave the river, I enter the mayhem of a city of over 3 million inhabitants, fast-moving, noisy, and crowded. Ojay Ratan Banerjee is a historian and an expert on the architectural heritage of Varanasi. He knows the city and its many changes better than anyone else. There's so much traffic here and an incredible amount of noise.
Absolument hallucinant.
Last 10 to 5 years, our vehicles, number of vehicles is very much increased. So there is a jam and noise pollution is everywhere. But obviously there is a way we will come through from that thing also. This city is about 3,000 years old.
Ah oui, oui.
Gradually, it develops in the southward side, adjacent to Ganga.
When did this very modern city develop?
Presently, you are seeing some are 50 years back old, or some are 25 years old, and some are very modern.
The city has already expanded beyond its original boundaries. Do you think that it will expand even further?
Because our city is growing rapidly. And as you know that there is two boundaries are there. One is administrative boundary,
Oui.
one is spiritual boundary.
The spiritual boundary.
Yes, yes. Spiritual boundary is there, okay, because it is very big, it covers very big area. But gradually our administrative boundaries develop their spaces.
Varanasi is a city of contrasts. Holy and timeless, it's nonetheless in the throes of rapid development due to the influx of huge numbers of pilgrims and tourists from around the world. I wonder if these constant transformations are affecting the city's spiritual dimension. I get the impression that the closer we get to the Ganges, the quieter it becomes.
Because when we gradually go near to the ghat, because their lanes are very narrow.
There are no more cars, only pedestrians.
Basically, these roads meant for the walk.
When you get here, it's as if the whole city was a huge path leading us to the Ganges.
Yes, because there is Holy Ganga. Na? Every road leads to that ghat.
It's the perfect passageway.
Oh, yes, yes. Because in Hinduism, ultimate goal is to be free from this type of hodgepodge, everything. So it is the main passage from where we can free from these materially things.
So when you reach the Ganges, you reach a point of arrival, both physically and spiritually.
Whenever we reach to the Ganges, in young age or in middle age or in last stage, every time we feel that, yes, this is our basic place where we get some relief, where we get some peace, where we get some things, heavenly things, you may say. So every time when we reach there or when we try to go there, it develops our feeling to next time I must visit that place. This is the thing.
It's on the Ghats, a long series of steps on the riverbank, that the religious life of Varanasi is concentrated. This unparalleled architectural ensemble, which follows the topography of the river, brings the inhabitants closer to the sacred waters of the Ganges. At this point, the river symbolizes the hair of the god Shiva. Many people come here to purify themselves or to be cremated on traditional funeral pyres. All along the Ghats, there are still monumental townhouses called havelis, built between the 15th and the 19th centuries. Varanasi was one of the favorite vacation resorts for the Maharajas, princes and wealthy merchants. But behind this apparent splendor, the back streets of the city reveal its fragile nature. Houses collapse, walls are filled with cracks, and facades crumble. It's as if the urban fabric was insignificant and the city was ready to discard it any time. The havelis along the Ganges are no longer the homes of the wealthy. Families who are struggling to pay for their upkeep now live there. I enter one of them, some 400 years old, to meet Shotu Guru, a priest who lives here with his entire family.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Thank you for welcoming me.
When did you get here?
This morning. This haveli is magnificent. When was it built?
The Maharaja Man Singh had it built and then passed it on to my ancestors. My father was born here, as was I. 5 generations in my family have lived here. Now I live here with my 4 brothers. That's 25 family members living here.
The first thing that struck me here was the silence compared to the inner city.
As you can see, the building was constructed in stone, which explains the quietness inside. The walls are thick and beautifully sculpted. Whatever's going on outside, you can't hear a sound inside. Plus, the building stands beside the Ganges, which also explains the tranquility.
When you're inside, you do get the feeling of being in a protective pod, as if you'd been removed from all the hubbub of the outside world.
What you say is very beautiful. It's a beautiful analogy, a protective pod. That's just how we feel here.
This townhouse also bears witness to a world that no longer exists, of a distant past, so it acts as a reminder of our fleeting existence on this earth.
Look at this wall, with its solid stone. The stone is ageless. It's the same for us, for our family and our health. We're all strong. Our family is solidly together, just like this stone. The god Ram watches over us and ensures the house stays solid. And the older it gets, the better it will be. Like diamonds that people wear as jewelry make them more beautiful and shine brighter, so the stone grows more beautiful over time.
So do you believe this city will never disappear?
The one big truth in this world is that everything has an end. I will disappear, my family members too, but these stones will continue to exist.
Yes. Thank you. While everything seems to be crumbling around us, I'm astonished at Chotuguru's confidence in the long-lasting nature of architecture. This haveli, like the city, may be protected by deities, but the passing of time has left its traces. To me, this city is, with its flaking stone and peeling walls, a mirror in which we can contemplate our own finitude, representing both the beauty and the shortness of life. This material obsolescence doesn't seem to affect the thousands of pilgrims who flock to the city urged on by a spiritual quest. I want to know what they find in Varanasi. Guru Ravi Shankar, Chotuguru's uncle and a priest too, has agreed to discuss this with me. To many pilgrims, Varanasi is a compulsory passing point in their spiritual quest. What do people seek and find here?
It's an ancient city, a city of culture, a city of religion. People come here from all over India to seek benediction. People of all religions, because even the gods of other faiths live here. 33 million deities live here. All pilgrims who come here do so with a distinct feeling, their own inner feeling. After strolling around here and looking around them, they feel at peace. Peace of soul is what is most important. If the soul is in peace, you're on the right path to nirvana.
How do you view the effects of time on this city?
It's a very ancient city. You can still see very old buildings, like this haveli, which is over 400 years old. All the Maharajas came here, and each of them built a monument or a mansion. Each of them made his mark before leaving.
At the same time, these townhouses and the ghats are gradually crumbling away. What will remain of Varanasi once all that has gone?
What's happening today is that people want to replace everything that's old by new things. Such changes are very troubling. Demolishing is a big mistake. Anybody can demolish, but not everyone knows how to build. If somebody has built something, we have no right to demolish it. If something was created and placed here, we have no right to move it.
Let's forget change for the moment. In your mind, what is there that's permanent in Varanasi?
If there are floods and hurricanes, everything may fall down on its own, then man can rebuild everything. But spirituality and culture will survive. These have been the true foundations of the city since the beginning.
Hearing Guru Ravi Shankar, I realize that his certainties about the future of the city are closely linked to his religious beliefs. Beneath the material Varanasi lies a spiritual Varanasi, which allows the former to live, die, and be reborn from its own ashes. To better understand this religious zeal, I go down to the Dasasvamedha Ghat to observe Ganga Arti, a ceremony that takes place every day at sunset. It's here that Varanasi came to be, and where you can feel the fervor that energizes the city. 5 priests accompany this ritual of light with their chants dedicated to the river Ganges. I'm somewhat overwhelmed by this spiritual effervescence, and I finally grasp what should have been an evident paradox. Here, everything is both in constant motion and still at the same time. Everything changes, yet nothing does. It's as if time had been suspended. Here, the river is used as all major rivers once were. Every morning, at daybreak, the banks of the Ganges come to life. The people of Varanasi come here to carry out their ordinary daily tasks, like bathing and washing clothes. The city's holy nature transpires in every single act carried out by the inhabitants of Varanasi. I now understand why temples and other religious buildings aren't considered to be the real basis of spirituality, to the point of letting them become run down. But OJ has been fighting for years to preserve this heritage, which is threatened by the city's modernization, and to ensure that these remarkable monuments are safeguarded.
And this temple is one of the oldest temples in the Varanasi.
It's a real work site.
Yes, yes. Restoration work is going on because total these walls were in ruined condition. We totally replastered them, and in old manner or in old material. We use lime mortar. We can use cement also. But that way, the essence and the feeling of this place will be gone.
But does everyone understand you need to use original materials and techniques?
Gradually, this feeling is come under the people, but some have that much money to create this type of work. Then they will go with their technique.
I imagine finance isn't the only obstacle. People's mentalities also need to change.
Yes, because we are in a age which is very fast. So everyone wants to do things faster. Basically, obstacle is there. It will take more time than modern techniques. Otherwise, if you have a will, there is a path.
For OJ, this type of work is a race against the clock. He hopes to be able to change mentalities and convince people of the importance of restoring the old temples and townhouses.
This is one of the oldest shrine of the Varanasi. 1868, Gwalior, King of Gwalior made this ghat and this palace and named this place as Ganga Mahal.
Right.
There are many tenants in this house. They occupied all the things. Gradually, after passing of time, they don't maintain it.
Why?
Because lack of manpower and many things. In 2011, the upper part and that bastion was collapsed.
Ah bon?
Really?
D'accord.
Because of non-maintenance and termite. And then we started restoration in 2012.
Là, le bastion.
The bastion up there.
That bastion.
Ah ouais, mais là,
Oh yes, I can see some parts still need to be restored.
It is a big process because, you know, we are making everything manually. Heavy machines are not here. So it will take some time, and gradually we will complete this project.
How long would it take to restore this building?
ça va être restauré, ce
I
bâtiment.
think 2 years.
Ah. Quand on voit,
When you see all these buildings, you realize that not only the passage of time, but also the passage of man, all the pilgrims that pass through here, have a profound effect on the city.
Our city was invaded by 5 times. So we have Hindu culture, Muslim culture, in fact, modern Christian culture and European culture also.
Do you mean that the architecture of Varanasi soaks up history rather than rejects it?
plus qu'elle ne lui résiste.
Our city has a complete museum of architecture. We have 1,000 years old temple in our town. Gradually we have many mosques and many palaces. So we have continuation of 2,500 years of architecture.
Depuis mon arrivée ici,
Since I got here, I've met priests who told me the city would never be destroyed because it's protected spiritually.
spirituellement.
In our belief, this city is immortal. We believe in that because I am a Hindu. Okay. But in Hinduism, there is medicines. This is a type of medicine, you may say, to protect our heritage and our old structures. Because if we don't protect these things, then it all will go on. So it is a type of our, you may say, it is our duty also to protect these things.
But don't such beliefs make your work more difficult?
There is a rigidness is there. Obviously, there is light conflict, but we have to make them understand that what we are going to do. Otherwise, everything will lost, na?
It's as if there was a division of labor. The priests oversee the spiritual side of the city, and you're in charge of preserving its material side.
Yes.
At the end of my visit, I begin to understand why some people say Varanasi will never disappear, despite the fact that everything seems to be on the verge of collapse. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus said that we never bathe in the same river twice, because, according to him, the only thing that is constant is change. And that's how I see Varanasi, in constant movement and somewhat chaotic. A place where everything changes yet remains unchanged at the same time, where every day life starts all over again, as if the city, the river and its people were trapped in an eternal cycle. This may be a way of finding one's place in the instability of our world.